Hi students, this is Dr. Thomas, and in this video I want to go over the second part of the Readiness exam, Test 1. So I'm calling it Test 1B for the second half of it. And those concepts are solving for indicated variable, percent, and consecutive integer problems. So here are some typical problems from the second half of the first test. So what you could do is pause the video right now and try these before seeing the explanations. So you can pause right now and just see if you get the answers right. Equation for the indicated variable. And as you can see, we have P equals A plus B plus C. And we are solving for A, so it will always tell you which letter that you should get on one side by itself. Right now, P is on one side by itself, but we want to isolate A instead. So we need to get the B and the C over there on the other side so that A can remain here and positive. So again, how would you do that? Well, you would subtract B and C from that side. So let me write the problem. P equals A plus B plus C. So what you could do is subtract B from both sides. That way, that B cancels here, and you have P minus B on the left side, A plus C, and then you can cancel the C. C's cancel, and now you have P minus B minus C equals A. So that's your answer. You've isolated A, so that's all you're asked to do. You're asked to isolate that variable, get that variable on one side by itself. Alright, next, let's go to number 10. Number 10 is A equals 1/2 times B times H for B. So we're trying to solve for B. We want to get B on one side by itself. Notice that we have a fraction in our equation, so we should get rid of the fraction first by multiplying both sides by the LCD. So we have A equals 1/2 B times H. The LCD of this problem is 2. That's the only denominator we have. So it was easy to figure out what the LCD was. Let's multiply both sides by 2. So we'll multiply the left side by 2. We'll multiply the right side by 2. On the right side, notice that the 2's cancel. That's why we multiply by the LCD, because it gets rid of fractions. Alright? Let's see what's remaining. 2 times A is 2A equals, since 2 times 1/2, and you can put a 1 under there if you needed to see that that 2 is in the numerator and that 2 is in the denominator, so that's why they cancel. A 1 is still left, but it's understood, so we don't have to write the 1. And then we put B times H. Now again, we are solving for B, so we need to keep B on one side by itself. That's why we need to get rid of the H from the right side. If we get rid of the H, we will have B remaining. B equals 2A over H. So this is your final answer. Alright, next, let's go on to number 11. Solve the problem. Round your answer to the 0.1% if necessary. What's nice about these problems on the Readiness exam is that they have multiple answers, multiple choice answers. So you could probably figure out what the answer of this without even working out the problem, to be honest with you. So if you say 23 is what percent of 92, you can kind of guess, right? Because what is half of 92? 41, 46, yeah, about 46. So 46 would be 50%. And if you kind of half that again, right, wouldn't that be about 25%? So you got to think about these things. Seems like C, we could have just eliminated that altogether, right? That we could definitely eliminate. 23 is what percent of 92? Definitely couldn't be 819% because 23 is less than 92. If it was 100%, it would be 92. 92 is 100% of 92. But this is less. So it would definitely be less than 100. So D is definitely out. So we only have to choose between A and B. And B just seems like the logical answer here. Because 0.1% is a very small number. But let me show you how to work out the problem by translating this question into an equation. So it says 23. So let's write that down. 23. When you see is in math, it is equal. Okay? The equal sign. So is equal. So 23 equals, when you have what percent, we don't know what it is, right? It's an unknown. We don't know what it is, so it's unknown. And we denote unknown by the variable x. So x, when you see of in math, that is multiplication. Multiplication. So when you see of, put a times symbol. And then you have 92 again. So let's write 92. 23 equals x times 92, which is the same thing as 23 equals 92x. Now, what would you do to solve for x? In order to solve for x, you can divide by 92. On the Readiness exam, what's nice is you have the option of having a calculator during the test. So all you have to do is plug in 23 divided by 92 in your calculator. Alright, so that's what I want you to do right now. Take the time to get your calculator out and divide 92 into 23. Alright, we get 0.25. Now always go back and read the question to make sure you have answered the question. So it said 23 is what percent of 92? So when we look at our answer, did we put it as a percent? Not yet. In order to change a decimal to a percent, what do? We move our decimal 2 places to the right, and then we put our percent sign there. So our answer is 25%. Alright, so for this particular problem, since it was multiple choice, you could just put B here, okay? Or you can circle your answer. Now, since that answer was just 25%, that's the same thing as 25.0%, okay? 25.0 and 25 are the same thing. If you want to check, just put in your calculator, put 25.0 in your calculator, you'll see it's the same thing. Alright, next we have number 12. 58 is 70% a wet number. So let's write that. 58. What is equivalent to in math? It's equivalent to equals 70%, and we can just write that for now. 70% of what is of equivalent to? Multiplication. Alright, so again, of is equivalent to multiplication. Is equivalent to the equal sign. Alright, what about wet number? Wet number. That is an unknown. So, we denote unknowns with an X. So, of times unknown X. 58 equals 7% times X, which is the same thing as 58. If we change this to a decimal, we drop the percent sign, move the decimal over, 0.70x. Now we solve for x by dividing both sides by 0.70. Again, use your calculator. 58 divided by 0.7 or 0.70 is 82. It's pretty a long decimal here. 82.857142286. But of course, writing that is not necessary, because if we go back up here and read the instructions, it says solve the problem, round to the nearest hundred if necessary. It's definitely necessary here because we have numbers after the decimal. So, what is the hundredths place? So, what is the hundredths place? Well, this number right back after the decimal is the tenths place. Alright. But this number, the second number after the decimal, is the hundredths place. Then it goes on to thousandths, 10,000ths, and so on. So we need two numbers after the decimal since it said round to the hundredths place. So in order to accomplish that, since this number here to the right of 5 is 5 or more, we will add 1 to the 5. Therefore, our final answer is x equals 82.86. Is that an answer choice? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. 58 is 70% of what number? So it looks like, since it says 7% of a number, okay, then 58 had to be like the majority of that number. So it would make sense that 58 is 70% of 82.86. So I want you to really think about your answers and make sure your answer makes sense. Because some of these you could probably guess at the answer if you really think about it. It wouldn't make sense that 58 is 7% of 828. That just doesn't make sense, because if it's 7% of something, it means it's taking up a lot of that number. And 58 compared to 828, they're not even close to each other. Alright, 58 is 7% of what number? That doesn't make sense. 8.29? Of course not. Because the number that we need definitely has to be greater than 58. and therefore we can also eliminate D from the answer choices as well. Alright, so we established that number 12 was A. Let's move on to number 13. Solve the problem. A rectangular Persian carpet has a perimeter of 204 inches. The length of the carpet is 22 inches more than the width. What are the width and the length of the carpet? So we know we have a rectangular Persian carpet. It brings up the perimeter. Now, what you need to do is learn the perimeter formula for a rectangle by heart. It is P equals 2L plus 2W. So let me emphasize, this is definitely on the test, so memorize. However, if you did not know that the perimeter, or you forgot the perimeter formula, you can always come up with the perimeter formula. If you draw a rectangle, you realize that you have width, length. What you could do is just add up all the sides, right? If you add up all the sides, then P equals W plus L plus W plus L. And if you add like terms, you still get 2W plus 2L or 2L plus 2W. It's the same thing. But now let's solve the problem. Alright, for number 13, we are given that a rectangular Persian carpet has a perimeter. So given, you put given. Given what? That P equals 204 inches. We also know that the length of the carpet. Let's let L equals length. The length of the carpet is, therefore I put equals 22 inches more than the width. So we could write that as W plus 22. Or you could have written it as 22 plus W. What are the width and the length of the carpet? Since that's all that was given to us, let's plug this information into our formula. Our formula again is P equals 2L plus 2W. We know that P equals 204. We also know that L equals W plus 22. But we also need to rewrite our plus 2W here. So we have 204 equals 2W plus 44 plus 2W. Therefore, we have 204 equals, we have like terms, 2W plus 2W equals 4W plus 44. Now we need to solve for W. Let's subtract 44 from both sides. 44 minus 44 cancels out. 204 minus 44 is 160 equals 4W. Divide by 4. The 4's will cancel out. Therefore, W equals 40. When you have word problems, always go back to make sure you have answered the question. The question is, what are the width and length of the carpet. Also, it may ask, what are the dimensions of the carpet? If they ask you either one of those questions, they mean find both W and L. So since we only have W, there is more work to be done. The easiest way to figure out what L is to plug it into this formula here, because we already know, according to the problem, that the length equals 22 inches more than the width. So all we have to do is plug in 40 for the W. Therefore, L must equal 40 plus 22, which is 62. Therefore, the width is 40 inches and the length is 62 inches. Or in other words, 40 by 62. Alright, lastly we have number 14. The sum of three consecutive integers is 444. Find the numbers. When we're dealing with consecutive integers, we let the first integer be represented by x. So let x represent the first integer. For the second integer, we let x plus 1 represent the second integer. And we let x plus 2 represent the third integer. That way, whatever x is, then the next number will be one more than that, and the next number will be one more than that. So consecutive means in order, right behind each other. So, or following each other. So, if, for example, if x was 1, then this would be 2, and then this would be 3. Because if you add 1 to 1, you get 2, and you add 2 to 1, you get 3. So, because it says sum, we are going to add it together. So, x plus 1 plus x plus 2 equals 444. Let's add like terms. We have an x plus x, which equals 3x plus 1 plus 2 equals 3 equals 444. Now we solve for x. Subtract 3. We get 3x equals 441. Then we divide by 3 to get x equals 147. So we go back to the question to make sure we have answered it. The sum of the three consecutive integers. So we have only come up with one so far. Since x equals 147, if I add 1 to the x, I know that I will have 148. If I add 2 to the x, I know I will have 149. Therefore, in conclusion, the three consecutive integers are 147, 148, and 149. How can you check to make sure this is accurate? Well, according to this problem, the sum of the three consecutive integers should add up to 444. What you could do is, in your calculator, add up 147, 148, and 149 to make sure, or to ensure, that this sums up to 444. Alright, this concludes my video on the readiness exam, test 1, but the second half of test 1. So we're calling it test 1B review.